Hey guys, welcome to Tell Me About It. This channel will be dedicated to the incredible and the unexplained. I will be uploading videos weekly. Today's story might just give you goosebumps. If you have any requests, suggestions, or first-hand personal experiences and would like them to be told on this channel and heard by others, then feel free to send me an email at tellmeaboutittv@gmail.com. That's spelled tellmeaboutit@gmail.com. If you're as intrigued by the incredible and the unexplained as I am, then make sure to pummel that like button, pinch and poke that subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. So this is a personal experience. In the early 2000s, there were 3 teenagers. We'll call them Amy, Duke, and Cindy. So they were sitting around bored, looking for some kind of trouble to get into, when Amy suggested that they go check out this abandoned insane asylum that she had heard about from all her friends. That this particular insane asylum was haunted, and it was located in Indianapolis, downtown, in kind of a sketchy area. So it was about 12 a.m. when all 3 of them piled up in the car. They started driving there. This particular hospital was known as Central State, and apparently it was built in the 1800s. As they were driving down the road, all 3 of them were laughing and joking and saying how many ghosts they were going to see and how haunted the place was, and etc. After about 30 minutes, Amy, who had long blonde hair and was the youngest out of the 3, asked if they had been driving in a circle because she thought they had passed the same building twice now. Now Duke, who was 4 years older than the other 2 girls and at least 6 inches taller, stated that no, it wasn't the same building, that they had actually been driving around a giant campus and all the buildings just kind of looked the same. Understandably, Amy was confused because this property was sitting on 100 to 160 acres of land. After pulling up to Central State, all 3 of the teenagers started getting really antsy, and they practically fell on top of each other getting out of the car. Cindy had black hair that was to her shoulders, and she was probably the least scared out of all 3. And she was actually very excited because she had had a grandma that had been in Central State for about 8 years, and when it closed down, they released everybody onto the streets. It was a really big, well-known story around there, and it ended up being very sad, actually. Now, all 3 of them were walking around the yard, and one of the first things they noticed was that it was gated. So finally, they started walking up and down the gate until they found a hole, and then they had to literally army crawl into this hole to get into this massive, lumpy yard. Now, Amy was the type of person that if she didn't know about something, she would research the crap out of it. This asylum, to her, was just another research project. Before even bringing this idea up to her friends, she looked into it a little bit, and she had actually found it was listed as one of the scariest, most haunted places in Indiana. Apparently, the place had been shut down because the patients were being experimented on, and then they were dying, and then they were being buried in unmarked graves. Now, don't quote me, because that's just what this website said. After the 3 of them walked into the gate, they walked up to the biggest of the buildings out of all the other buildings that they seen. And as they started to go inside the building, one of the first things that they noticed, the ceiling of the 2nd floor was visible from the 1st floor, just due to years of not being maintained, just being a forgotten building. So Amy started looking for unlocked rooms when she started hearing a squeaking sound. As the 3 of them made it halfway through the hospital, the squeaking noise became louder. Amy turned down a hallway to see an incredibly old and dingy wheelchair was rolling and only stopped until she walked up to it and put her hand on it. Now, because Cindy and Duke were so far back, they didn't see what Amy seen. So Amy asked, had Cindy or Duke heard or seen anything weird since they'd gotten there? The only thing that Cindy said was every picture she took, there were these white balls in every picture that had somebody in them, but never in any picture that nobody was in the frame. Now, Amy was telling Cindy that she believed that they were orbs because of the positioning and the size, and due to the fact that they were only in pictures while somebody else was in the picture. As Duke walked up behind Amy, the flashlight that he had in his hand started making a loud buzzing noise before it finally started flickering and then cut out altogether. Right as all three teenagers started to get a little worried, Amy looked at a door that was open, and behind the door she could see that there were stairs, but the stairs were leading down, which didn't make sense to her because as far as they knew, there was no basement. Confused, Amy led both Cindy and Duke down the stairs. But when they got to the bottom, they expected to see a large open room, but they didn't. All they seen was another set of stairs going down again. Now, instead of excited and ramped up, you could tell that all three teenagers' demeanor just changed. It was like the fact that they were going down below any basement area really started to creep them out. Duke started giving Cindy a look like he didn't know if he wanted to go down those second set of stairs. But before they could say anything, Amy had already made it halfway down them, yelling for them both to follow. As they got to the bottom of the second stairs, they noticed that the whole layout of this hospital had changed. It was more like a windowless concrete tunnel. Amy could barely stand up straight just to walk down these tunnels, and they were probably about 5 feet wide. After exploring these claustrophobia-inducing tunnels, they started hearing loud banging noises coming from behind them. Now, reacting to this, Amy had picked up her pace and started fast walking down these tunnels until she came up to this big metal door. Now, this door looked like it had about 5 layers of glass to this tiny square window. Catching up to Amy, Duke and Cindy both bumped into Amy, which made Amy gasp so loud that it echoed through the tunnels. As Cindy walked up, she kind of pushed Amy to the side so she could look in the window as well. And that's when she seen that there was this big metal chair in the middle of this little segregated room, and what looked like electroshock therapy tools all scattered on the floor. The whole room looked like it was just in complete disarray. Totally freaked out at this point, they all took off running inside this underground tunnel. Further and further they ran into almost complete darkness until they came into this room that kind of looked like a boiler room. That's when they started realizing that that banging noise was still going on in the background, and the banging started to sound a lot more like footsteps. Not being able to see a door down there, Amy did see what looked like a hole in just the side of a wall. Not thinking, she just crawled inside, and Cindy was forced to follow her, and then Duke. But as Duke started to crawl through the hole, and when he got about halfway through, he started screaming, "Something's got my leg! Something's got my leg! Something's grabbing me!" And he forced himself so hard through this hole that he kind of toppled onto the floor where Amy and Cindy had been standing. So they all three got up and they started looking around this small room when they noticed that there was yet another set of stairs, but these stairs were going up. So without thinking about it, they all three started stomping up these stairs, trying to get out of this creepy place as fast as they could. But as soon as they got up there, Amy realized that nothing looked familiar at all. The building that they were in this time was not set up the way the first building was, or the tunnels. This building had a bunch of separate rooms that were way bigger than any of the other rooms in the other buildings, and they were just lined up with beds upon beds. Cindy looked out the window, and that's when she noticed that the building they went in originally was across from them, about 200 yards away. And then that's when it dawned on them that these tunnels that were under all these different buildings, they connected to each other. Now, having their fill of ghosts and paranormal and scary and creepy for the night, they decided to look for the egg. As they looked across the yard to yet another building, they noticed that in one of the windows on the second or third floor, there was a light on. which didn't make sense because none of these buildings had any electricity. But because of this light, it was casting a shadow in the background, moving awkwardly in this room. Amy literally felt goosebumps, and she started running across this super lumpy yard back to the gate. But because they were so turned around, she could not find the hole that they had came in through. So before any time could pass, she started climbing the fence and she hopped over it, and Cindy and Duke followed. When the three got over the fence, they literally were running to their car. And these three teens would go on to explore this asylum many, many, many more times. Nothing like this ever happened on any other occasion. So what do you think those noises were? Do you think that it was maybe a homeless person? Do you think it was a ghost? Let me know in the comments. Make sure to pummel that like button, pinch and poke that subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. Also, if you have any requests, suggestions, or personal first-hand experiences that you would like to be told on this channel, feel free to send me an email at tellmeaboutit.tv@gmail.com. That's spelled TELLMEABOUTIT@gmail.com. And I'll see you next time.